Recently, as a part of my degree, I undertook some geological fieldwork. The reason I choose to burden you all with this knowledge is that I decided to take a few photos and videos and attempt to do something constructed with them. Unfortunately, I failed, so here's what's left. The first part of fun is always planning the fun, naturally. The same process applies to work, only it's better because you can always come back and find out exactly what it was you considered a hazard in 20 years' time and realise just what your life has become. For my sins, my hazard assessment reaches a modest 14 pages. This is of course on top of the 4 other documents I had to obtain and submit, so who said that students don't know how to have fun? This is probably the part that seems the most innocuous. You get on a train from the town of your English university, go to your English field area and get off. Well, you'd be right. Mostly. Except for the fact that geology tends to be easiest to see in places that are hard to get to, hence the reason that my university offers field areas that could be charitably described as remote. But hey, at least they're all in the same country. Or at least they would be if I relished the prospect of a month trying to hide paper from the vague threat of rain. Instead, I upped sticks and went to Catalonia, which you can call Spain, just don't do it when you're there. Getting there therefore meant going through airports and the like, which I've now had to mentally recategorise as a rare and rapidly expiring pleasure. My heart goes out to the British public. And, of course, after having arrived in a centre of civilization, you have to leave it as quickly as possible to prove your devotion to the subject, meaning a long bus trip and an excuse to make something resembling an Indiana Jones travelling screen. Once you're done faffing about, it's time to begin in earnest. To that end, the tools of the geological mapper are some maps, naturally, a compass with a sighting mirror that doubles as a compact in times of need, 2 litres of water daily to fuel your addled brain, and a brick hammer that's sold at the geological hammer because apparently we're all complete mugs. Once you're equipped, you're ready to go, and thus begins several weeks of walking around a rural idyll and sorely wishing you didn't need to stop and take notes every time you come across a small boulder poking its head out of the grass in a forest. Slowly, you write a whole load of words all over what was once a perfectly neat map and create something akin to what you'd expect to see if a cartographer snapped and started wanting to murder his girlfriend. It's also highly important to make notes in your notebook, which has to be a bright yellow just to mark you out as a special kind of pillock. These notes typically follow the format of rock is X and Y, therefore Z. And things sort of continue in that vein until you find something really exciting, in which case you jump around for a while going woohoo before writing it in your notebook, or you find something that makes no sense at all, at which point you grumble and scratch your head before writing it in your notebook. Once you've spent a sufficiently long time in the field so as to collect enough information and fulfill contractual obligation in one neat blow, it's time to start analysing. The first step in doing this is to transform your once neat and now scrawled all over topographic map into a geologic map, which means drawing some really long dashed lines all over it in a way that follows the laws of geometry. The process is long and arduous, and I imagine somewhat akin to giving away your daughter's hand in marriage. You know what you're doing is for the best, but you can't help but think this act will ruin everything. I've never actually done that, come to think of it. Can you tell? After you've sorted that out, you need to put together a GVS, which is essentially geology's answer to a rainbow ice lolly, showing all the rocks you've seen and the order they sit on top of one another. You also need to make a cross-section of the geology, which is easier to do on paper than it is to cut the entire Earth in half, though less satisfying. Both of these take quite a while as well, because it typically takes getting the whole thing finished before you spot the glaring mistake and have to feed it to the dog or whatever. Finally, you write up a report and start tearing your hair out over removing that extra and or but to stay inside the word limit. And then you're finally done. You can relax, once you've submitted an expenses claim, of course. Time to celebrate, I feel. Why don't we watch me fall in a river?